Hi class, welcome to PEP 289, Tests and Measurements for Physical Education and Exercise Science with me, Elizabeth Harding. Today we're going to talk about organizing data, and we're going to work into creating a grouped frequency distribution. So for some of you that are relatively new to Excel, we're going to learn some pretty basic Excel skills here, certainly not all of them, but just a few with this first sheet. So this is your workbook, and as you can see, I've labeled, there's 4 different tabs: organizing data, frequency distribution, your grouped frequency distribution, and your assignment. Okay, so right now we're working on the organizing data tab, and it looks pretty sparse, right? I think you have a little dialog box that I've written with some objectives for this particular lesson. What you also have is you have essentially a row of data that looks something like this, right? So it's essentially this column of data just in a row format. And what we were coming up with in class was what we were trying to come up with in class was the transpose function. So let me just show you, I'm going to show you sort of the reverse way. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to just right click, copy, go up to the cell, paste special, and transpose. Okay, and so now I have this row of data, and sometimes you'll get a data set that's, that where each participant might have a column. So each participant has a column for their data where the rows might represent a certain variable, like their height, their weight, their age, their sex, etc. The statistical programming that we would be using likes variables in columns, and each subject has their own row. Okay, so let's go ahead and just clean up your spreadsheet here. So if you were to go ahead and highlight this, oops, go ahead and right click and copy. And we're actually going to go to this empty cell here right below the 12 that's highlighted, and we're going to right click, paste special, and transpose. Okay, and the reason why we did that and we didn't start in this corner, like we would intuitively want, is because Excel would make a circular reference and we'd come up with an error. So what we can do though is we can right click on this again. Oops. Nope, did it. Okay. And just clear contents. At least it only cleared contents for that. So let's highlight. So Mac users, you're going to have, I believe MacBook Pro users anyway, you're going to have to use clear contents from the drop-down menu, where PC users, I believe you just have a delete button that will actually delete all of the contents that, everything that's highlighted. Our delete key would only maybe delete one cell at a time. All right, so say we wanted to move this column of data up. Well, it's actually fairly easy to do. We're going to select this cell, so we want to shift all of this data up to this cell here. So we can right click, and if we were to hit delete, as in delete the cell, it actually gives us a command to go ahead and shift the cells up. And so you can see very easily we now have nice ordered data. All right, but we don't necessarily need this column. We already have our observations, which is push-ups over here in column B. So we can highlight this entire column C and get rid of it. Okay. So let's talk about dragging cells in Excel. Let's do this first column here and call this our number of participants. Our participant number, I should say. Let's do that way. Participant number, since we like to de-identify our subjects, give them a number rather than a name. And so just starting with 1, 2, we can go ahead and hand type in 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Or highlight the first 2 cells in this little plus sign and small box in the right hand corner. Go ahead and drag that down, and Excel just magically knows what we were trying to accomplish there and gives us this ordered row of data. All right. right, so we're going to do a rank order distribution. This is just an ordered list of data in a single column. It's just an easy way to look at the spread of your data, some of the variability within your data. It's very effective if, say, you only have, or if everything that you have can fit onto one page. Okay, so we have 15 participants. We can check this by using the count function in Excel. So we could just highlight the number of observations we see, and we get 15. So very helpful if you have a very large set of data, which I'll show you on the next worksheet. So we want to sort these two columns by the number of push-ups, but we want to make sure that the subject number stays with the number of push-ups that they accomplished. So going up to this sort menu here, this A, Z with a drop-down arrow, there's a little menu. We're going to go to Custom Sort by column, and we actually do want to sort by column B. We want to sort by the number of push-ups. So by column B, okay, and see the participant number went with their number of push-ups. So that's exactly what we want. All right. So in order to calculate the range, we need to find the minimum and the maximum values. Now this is very easy to do. We have 15 participants. We've ordered them. We can see that our minimum value is 2 and our maximum value is 18. But let's just go ahead and learn the formulas. So if I'm going to give these next two columns two headers, so minimum, maximum, and actually if you just hit the tab key, you can just cruise on down the columns. Okay, but coming back to minimum, the formula is equals, always equals first, minimum parenthesis, and then go ahead and select your data and hit enter. And maximum equals maximum parentheses. So some Excel formulas are quite intuitive, others maybe not so much. Okay, and then to calculate the range, it's essentially just equals our maximum value minus our minimum value. Okay, is 16. So we don't necessarily want to get into the habit of, even though Excel would, it can work as a calculator where we could type in 18 minus 2. Oops, what did I forget? The equal sign. Okay. Is 16. We don't necessarily want to get in that habit, and the reason is because if anything ever changed over here, right? Or for instance, if our maximum value actually changed over here, watch what happens to column F versus what happened to column E. So say our new maximum is actually 20. Subject 7 actually did 20, not 18 push-ups. Our range changes, but it didn't change over here, right? So it's just a good habit to always reference the cells in your formulas. Okay. All right, so that's essentially all of these objectives for this first worksheet. So let's move on to creating a frequency distribution. Oops. I'm going to get rid of all this. Sorry about that. All right. All right, so you can see I have my participants here, and I have the amount of push-ups that they completed. This is a lot of data, right? There's a lot of data, a lot of rows of data. So I don't really know my count, but I'm going to go ahead and use that Excel formula, equals count. Go ahead and do that. Just going to highlight that whole column. So I have 179 participants. Okay. And what I'd like to know is maybe the range. So because I have so much data, all of this data can't necessarily fit on one page. It's a nice idea to maybe use a grouped frequency distribution. Okay, so this is essentially how many participants did 21 push-ups, how many participants did 13 push-ups, and it'll make it it'll condense it and hopefully all fit on just one page so you can quickly visualize maybe the spread of your data. Okay, so let's start off by finding the maximum and the minimum values. So go ahead and do that. So highlight the column, just click on. Okay. Go ahead and calculate your range. So my range is 17. All right, so my maximum was 30, my minimum was 13. So what I want to know is that, that's not a huge range. 17 is not a huge range, right? That's going to fit nicely. So I think what I'm going to do is for my groupings, I'm just going to start with 13 and end at 30. So starting with 13, go ahead and enter 14. You can go ahead and, 13, 14, hand type all the way up to 30, or, again, Excel will go ahead and do that order or the count for you. This little plus sign right here, and you can see as I move it down, the little box with 15, 16, 17 comes up, and so it'll tell me when I'm at 30 and I can stop. All right, so now I want to know how many participants scored 13 push-ups, how many participants scored 21 push-ups. So I'm going to use the COUNTIF function. So this is different than the count function. So the formula, you're going to enter COUNTIF parenthesis. So it gives you a little help menu here, and if you wanted more help or more description of what Excel is asking you for, you can always click on this hyperlink. But we're looking for the range and the criteria. So the range is essentially our data, this column B. And then comma, and then the criteria are these values here, this 13 through 30. Okay. And so what this is telling me is that 13, only one participant scored 13 push-ups. So what I can do is see the little box in the lower right-hand corner. I can double click and it'll carry that formula all the way down. So hopefully, if I were to do a sum of this column, I would get 179 observations. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do a sum. So equals sum. So this is just adding up a column of data, or adding up data points. And I got 179. So that's a good check. Okay, so this is my frequency distribution. Right, so what I have here is in the next column we're going to do a cumulative frequency. So the cumulative frequency, especially if we were to graph it, is just an easy way to see where participants stood compared with the other participants. So we're not going to talk I'm not going to get too detailed about cumulative frequency, but I do want to show you how to calculate the cumulative frequency column. So you're going to reference in the first, this cell F2 is essentially equal to cell E2. Okay, so just hit equals, select E2, and enter. And then what the cumulative frequency is you have 1 plus 4 plus 5 plus 10 plus 12 and all the way up, right? And so that our last variable will actually, if it works, will be 179. So in this next cell, so we have, okay, we've referenced this first one. So now we're going to equal this, right, our first cell, plus this, right, and enter. Okay, so 1 plus 4 is 5. and then 5 plus 5 should be 10. 10 plus 10 should be 20, or it will be. So if I were to select these two, let's see if it will carry the formula all the way down. And it doesn't. Command Z. No, that's right. Let's try this. There we go. Okay, so what happened is that it was still referencing. It wanted to start fresh, so it was still referencing this first cell. But when I highlighted just the second where there was actually a formula, an operation, right? F2 plus E3, then it knew to keep adding the cell down the row. And so you can see we have our last observation, 179. Okay, so that's how to make a cumulative frequency column. And we'll talk a little bit more about cumulative frequency when we talk about percentiles in class. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is a grouped frequency distribution, but I'm going to stop this video and then pick up in the next one. All right.